Nearly 1,000 people have lost their lives on Oklahoma highways this year. Thousands more have been maimed. Safety experts fear that total could be pushed higher tomorrow night when thousands of drunk drivers take to the roads.
It's 1:31 in the afternoon. I tell you what, we've got something special for all of you, our listeners. You know, New Year's Eve could be ruined if there's an accident, and we got together with the fine folks at Yellow Cab, and we've got something that'll make it a little safer this New Year's Eve.
Radio station KOMA and Yellow Cab Company have teamed up to stop some of the New Year's Eve carnage. Party goers who feel they've had too much to drink can call KOMA at 794-5565. The station will send a cab to drive the overdoers home free of charge.
And we know that there are a lot of people who don't engage in partying and reveling and drink, and that we want to make the road safe for them on New Year's too. And we're not encouraging people to go out and to drink over their limits so they can take advantage of the service, but rather so that even the folks who aren't drinking will have a safer holiday, because their lives will not be threatened by somebody who's had too much.
Both the radio station and the cab company expect to be busy. Drinking and driving is a bad habit any day of the year, not just on New Year's Eve. But if you discover tomorrow night that you or a friend have been celebrating too much, then go ahead and take KOMA and Yellow Cab up on their free offer. You just might save something much more precious than just the cab fare. Scott Wallace, Action 4.
This is what the fire department found when they arrived around 7 p.m. They knew the building at 25th and Broadway was going to be a total loss. Firemen tackled high winds carrying sparks and smoke in all directions. Just as one area was doused out, another would flare up. The age of the building didn't help. Flames ate through the brittle pieces as if they weren't there at all. But there were some things on the fire department's side. Apparently the structure contained no electricity or heat source. The leaser of the building arrived to find a shell standing where his storage building used to be. He says he thinks the fire began at 3 in the afternoon.
Apparently a switch engine came by earlier and started a fire on the tracks, and they were out here, putting it out. And maybe they didn't get all of it or whatever, but that's my estimation, that's probably what it was.
Luckily, the building contained only storage items and was not the main office. The leaser apparently has no insurance, and there is no damage estimate at this time.
It's a sad feeling when you've been working on a railroad about 35 years and your last day. You don't know how to feel, really. It gets close-knit like a family, because after so long a time, you know them just like you would one of your own family members.
Inside the station headquarters, workers stand and wait to administer the last rites to a dying railroad. There's nothing left. Trucks were here the day before to remove all the furnishings.
This order is annulled.
The only sound in the building is coming from the second floor dispatcher room. David's been with the company 32 years. He's one of 5 lucky workers who will still be employed after midnight. 340 men aren't so lucky. Yet even though they've lost their jobs, they still love the railroad.
The attitude from the employees have been overwhelming, really. It's really been a positive step. They've really had the company, the OKT company, at heart. They worked just as hard up to the last day as they did the first day. There's been no ill feelings shown whatsoever toward the OKT in any way whatsoever. It's really been gratifying.
This train leaving the station marks the end of a railroad, the end of an era, and the end of a lifestyle for these men. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
Smoke has been filling the air and flames have been shooting as high as 70 feet since the natural gas well blew out late Thursday night. The well is just south of Cromwell in east central Oklahoma. Efforts to extinguish the flames on Friday failed, and today firefighters from the Red Adair Company in Houston arrived to try to control the blaze. They've been fighting the fire with water on the outside while attacking the source by pumping mud inside the well, trying to suffocate the blaze. A spokesman for the Glencoe Petroleum Company estimates $1.5 million in damages from the explosion and fire, but owner Glenn Cohn says they won't abandon the well.
Yeah, we still got another 1,000 feet to go, so I would assume that probably we'll move about 300 feet to the south of that well and start a new well. I'd be a little reluctant to go back in that old hole.
One man was slightly injured when the well blew. A speculation of the cause is that some sort of spark ignited the gas when the drill hit sand. The intense heat of the flames has melted the rig itself, and it leans precariously, posing a possible hazard to crews working to control the fire. But the well, with its blazing testimonial of its contents, is in a rural area. It's 2 miles to the small community of Cromwell. Authorities aren't concerned about the inferno spreading, although small crowds of spectators have gotten in the way. The company wants to get the fire out soon so they can start working again, and they hope to have things under control by the end of tonight. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4, near Cromwell.
The investigation continues into the first possible murder in the city for 1982. Authorities were called to this Oklahoma City tavern early yesterday. The victim's wife had found her husband slumped over, apparently killed by gunfire. Friends and relatives of the victim huddled at the crime scene trying to get more information, but there were few clues.
Right now, the only thing we can say is that it's a homicide. The victim is Willie Smith. He's black male, approximately 59 years old. He's been shot at least one time. There are no suspects at this time.
Willie Smith's friends say he owned the tavern where he was killed, and police speculate that one possible motive for the murder could have been robbery. Detectives are still looking for a suspect. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Northeast Oklahoma City.
Early Sunday morning, a Lake Patrol cruiser was called to a reported traffic accident off County Line Road just south of Lake Overholser. A 73 Olds Cutlass had plunged nose down into a ditch on the side of the road. One look inside that car revealed authorities were not investigating an accident, but rather a double murder. A man and woman in their early 20s had been shot to death. The man shot and stabbed repeatedly in the head. The woman shot in the head at least twice. The death scene is 3 or 4 blocks down the street from this trailer park. None of the residents reported hearing any gunshots. However, there are reports of a possible suspect walking southbound on County Line Road. Police say they have no hard evidence on any suspect.
No, we have not developed an absolute suspect, nor have we developed a substantial suspect description.
You were given a report of someone seen in the area which has not materialized.
Correct.
Monday says authorities have tentatively identified the victims, but cannot release their names until family members make positive identification. Police had trouble figuring out the man's real name as he was carrying several different ID cards. Monday will not speculate on why the couple was murdered near Lake Overholser. However, he says the motive for the double murder may become clear when the victims' names and relationship are released. Larry Otis, Action 4, Lake Overholser.
Elimination of the sales tax on prescription drugs, which just went into effect, was a step in the right direction for helping those who need the help most. But I think a second step is needed, and our caucus is supporting legislation that would eliminate 2% sales tax, that is the state sales tax on food. Now, I think that it's important for us to recognize that many municipalities are dependent on sales tax for their primary source of operations. We want to use care not to disturb that. And we would deal only with the state portion of the sales tax on food.
Northbound travelers out of Oklahoma City are pretty much used to the huge green directional signs. But as they approach the Route 66 junction, the little orange signs begin to pop up, giving fair warning that for the next couple of years, I-35 will turn into one big detour. At noon today, the barrels and lights were set up and northbound traffic diverted to a two-lane access road. The detour clears traffic from the old interstate lanes, allowing construction crews to tear up the old highway and finish building overpasses. Northbound traffic depicted by the red line will continue to be detoured between 63rd and 122nd until construction is finished in about 2 years. Southbound traffic in black will be partially detoured Monday and completely off the old two-lane within 2 months. Some 35,000 vehicles will travel the 7-mile detour daily, and so far no problems. Mid-afternoon traffic moves smoothly through the construction zone with little delay. Of course, traffic is always heavier during the rush hours, but the Transportation Department says traffic will continue safely if drivers just heed the little orange signs. Larry Otis, Action 4, I-35.
But of course it didn't do any good. And then I came in.
We have been the beacon for the world, and what's going on in Iran, in Poland, in Africa, the entire third world, the world looks to us. How can we deny half of the citizens equality of rights under the law when that is what we espouse for all the world? So it's that simple.
Details are still sketchy, but apparently Woodward County Sheriff Creel Gaston used his Cadillac to pull over two men suspected of stealing gasoline in the nearby town of Sharon, Oklahoma. The 63-year-old sheriff got out of his car to question the two when the passenger got out of his car and fired at Gaston, hitting him in the chest. But as the sheriff went down, he fired his own revolver, hitting his assailant in the arm. A witness called an ambulance as the suspects fled the scene.
There was two suspects involved. They are in custody now. One was injured. Mr. Gaston shot one of them in the arm, and the other one ran, and we caught him approximately an hour later, about a half a mile from there.
Both Gaston and the wounded suspect were taken to Woodward Hospital. The suspect is in satisfactory condition. Gaston underwent more than 3 hours of surgery. Even though doctors would not remove the bullet, they say the sheriff's chances of survival are good.
I think it may take a while to know exactly what will happen, but more or less we know that he's going to be okay. But we still have to play day by day.
One suspect is being held as a material witness. The other will be booked into county jail after he's released from the hospital. Ted Brown, Action 4 in Woodward.
One bullet or two? One.
If we arrive at a point where I know that I am not going to be able to pass the Equal Rights Amendment in the Oklahoma Senate, then a difficult decision will have to be made at that point in time as to whether or not to go ahead and call the roll on it so that the people who are interested in it and others can make their record, or whether to simply send it back to the committee. But in either case, it would be the termination of the activity on this issue for the session.
The flames and smoke were intense. At about 1 o'clock this morning, firefighters arrived to find this two-story frame house totally engulfed in flames. They attacked the fire from all sides. The house has been empty for about 3 months. Rhonda Walters owns it and has been working on remodeling the house. This morning, she could only stand by and watch her labors go up in smoke. The wind was calm this morning, and that's a lucky thing. Flames this strong could have easily spread to other houses. Ray Augustine was one of the first to spot the danger.
I seen this house on fire, and there was a man I was standing outside. He was asking me did I know who lived there, and I told him I didn't. So by that time, he had told me to call the fire department, and I called the fire department, and I rang out my mother. And we just went to house, knocking on doors, telling people it's a fire.
The cause of the fire is still being looked into. The gas and electricity were both off in the house, and fire officials say they are exploring the possibility of arson. Brian Sweet, Action 4.
There are many veterans who come home and are forgotten by everyone. There are many veterans who would like to come home and forget, but they can't. These veterans we'll call the Cold War casualties.
There were 235 atmospheric nuclear tests conducted by the U.S. government from 1946 to 1962. An estimated 250,000 servicemen participated in the tests.
Remember, it was the height of the Cold War. The Atomic Energy Commission wanted to find out how to build a better bomb, and the Defense Department wanted to find out how soldiers reacted after the detonation of a nuclear bomb.
Today, the big picture camera swings to the barren flats near Desert Rock, Nevada.
One central theme ran throughout every government film. The tests were safe. To provide an added sense of security for the troops, radiation-sensitive film badges called dosimeters were worn. However, veterans say they weren't protected from radiation exposure. Today, they want the Veterans Administration to compensate them. Take the example of retired Master Sergeant Ted Priskuki of Las Vegas. In 1976, he developed cancer, and his larynx was removed.
Well, I filed a claim for disability, and it was denied, so I appealed it. That was denied.
In Nevada, Priskuki participated in 22 tests. He had been a transportation sergeant. Says he got as close as several thousand yards to ground zero many times. Important to his disability claim are dosimeter records. They show the level of radiation to which he was exposed.
There is no dosimeter record for me.
In Alexandria, Virginia, the Defense Nuclear Agency keeps check on the dosimeter records. Spokesman Colonel Dale Keller provides this explanation why Ted Priskuski's disability case is hard to prove.
Well, I think that's indicative of one of two things. Either the individual was not present at any of the test shots, in which case his records would indicate that. Or number two, his records may have been destroyed in a fire that took place at the Personnel Records Center in St. Louis, Missouri in 1973.
At VA headquarters in Washington, John Hagan, the Deputy Benefits Director, says he doesn't know why Priskuki's records are missing.
How about the fire in St. Louis in 1973?
That had nothing to do with that because those are medical records and not radiation records. The Department of Defense maintains the records on radiation exposure.
To Priskuski, the contradiction leaves him frustrated and skeptical.
They either intentionally withheld the information or deliberately told us a big fat lie.
Tomorrow, a doctor challenges the alleged safety of A-bomb testing. I'm Jerry Adams, Action 4.
Oklahoma City streets could be covered with ice when you wake up tomorrow morning. In fact, maintenance crews have already been at work tonight, spreading salt and sand on slick intersections. The maintenance department has placed 100 workers on standby. They'll be ready to man the city's snowplows, spreaders, and graders if the weather turns nasty. The crews realize they may or may not have to battle the boulevards. They've already had 3 false alarms this season. But if this storm strikes as scheduled, the crews say they'll be ready. Scott Wallace, Action 4, Northwest Oklahoma City.
A lot of money, you didn't pay any taxes, you don't get it. About it. It's a tax cut for taxpayers. Changed from 14 to 70%. And for the most part, you can depreciate all your assets over a 5-year period of time.
But I don't really think that Oklahomans, the majority of Oklahomans, would want to transfer that much power to the courts and to the administrative branches to interpret it. And I could see it, some interpretations that could be very, very detrimental to the women of Oklahoma, you know, to the daughters and wives, etc. Whether we're talking about draft, I think if it was enacted right now, we continued the registration. Women would have to be registered, and if we had a draft, I think they'd have to be drafted.
Out of the many student organizations on the OU campus, none has had a tougher time being recognized by the university as the Gay Activist Alliance. For 5 years, the gays have tried to organize at OU. It all started in 1977 when they asked for the approval of the Student Congress. They claimed they had the same right to recognition as other groups on campus. But when the question was put to the student body at large, the gays were voted down. A long court battle followed, and finally, the Oklahoma Supreme Court sided against the university, and Regents today decided not to appeal their decision.
And what they're saying is, in essence, you must permit all forms of expression and views to be presented without suppressing, even though the conduct or the goals or ideals of that organization might be personally repugnant, abhorrent, or reprehensible.
No matter what.
No matter what.
Of course, we were happy that they decided to go ahead with the favorable decision, but a lot of this was based on kind of a publicity thing for OU and different people wanting to build up what they perceive to be the correct image for this university, and that excluded having gay students here.
We are not here to offend anyone. We never have been. It's just that in Oklahoma, just existing as an entity is offensive to some people, and I think that's unfortunate. We look forward to the day when all human beings' diversity can be appreciated in this country.
That day hasn't necessarily arrived yet, but at least now the gays will have the recognition on the OU campus they fought so long to get. Ted Brown, Action 4 in Norman.
Mr. Hamilton, you were sitting where in the aircraft?
On the very back row next to the galley.
Do you think that had anything to do with the fact that you're still here this morning?
Yes, I think that everybody got out. I think most of us were all in the back part of the airplane.
When did you know there was a problem?
Right after takeoff, the plane really started vibrating, really shaking, and at that point, I knew something wasn't right.
What did you do?
I reached down, gave my seatbelt one more good tight gig. I really don't know why at this time, but I'm sure glad I did.
After the aircraft hit, how did you get out?
I just reached down and passed the seatbelt and went out what had been the rear of the airplane.
I mean, that was gone? It was just a hole in the back?
Yeah, it's just a big hole. I just swam, walked, however, I'm not even sure how I really got out there. Yeah, that's probably a better term.
What's wrong? Well, why are you in the hospital?
Well, I've got a broken right arm in 2 places. They said I had a broken rib yesterday, and I've got some chest pains, but other than that, just mainly to get my temperature back up.
For a guy who looks like he's been through a dogfight, you sound fairly chipper. You feel pretty good?
I feel great, you know. I heard a long time ago, if you think the day's bad, try missing a couple of them.
Just who will be the new police chief for Oklahoma City now that Chief Tom Heggy has resigned?
Well, according to City Manager Scott Johnson, who was unable to appear on camera today, he says that decision is solely left up to him. He's looking at a number of candidates, some already members of the Oklahoma City Police Department, and some of the candidates are members of police departments in other cities. He's trying to narrow the list down now, hoping that he will have a finalist by February 15th when Heggy officially steps down. Assistant Oklahoma City Police Chief Lloyd Gramling is said to be a top candidate for the chief's job. He's been on the force for more than 28 years and says he's just taking the wait-and-see approach on what the city manager will decide. And then there's Assistant Police Chief Gerald Emmett, who is also probably being considered for the police chief position. He has been an Oklahoma City police officer for 27 years. Emmett indicated he is not actively campaigning for police chief, but obviously is interested in who is finally selected for the job. The job of Oklahoma City Police Chief pays $46,000 a year, but more importantly, the job heads a department of 968 people. Officers we talked with say for morale purposes, they would rather see people promoted from within the department as opposed to bringing in someone from another city. City Manager Johnson has been talking with officers informally about the police chief position. Naming a new chief is sure to be one of the most important decisions Johnson will make since taking office just a few weeks ago. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at Oklahoma City Police Headquarters.